So this video is probably going to make some people very excited and also very mad because, Alex, what are we doing today?
We are doing some all-electric off-roading. So we have our Tesla Cybertruck hooked up to a big trailer with an all-electric side-by-side, the Polaris Ranger XP Kinetic Ultimate. So yeah, all-electric, driving to the trailhead and off-roading in the side-by-side.
Now we get this comment a lot saying the Tesla Cybertruck can't tow worth a darn, it wouldn't work for my adventure needs. We're going to find out if that's true, and then we're going to hit some dirt with this all-electric Polaris. And this thing's pretty cool. It's got some pretty mind-blowing stats on it, and we're going to find out, is the world of EV UTVs ready for your wallet? All right, so this is a pretty typical afternoon Colorado adventure. So we've got the truck fully charged. We've got a couple of guys here. Our videographer, Gavin.
Hi, guys.
Yep, Gavin's gonna be tagging along with us today. And we started with this truck fully charged, and we've got about a 100-mile trip to make. We've got to go up some pretty crazy elevation too, from like 5,000 feet all the way up to about 11,000 feet above sea level. So Alex, you think we're gonna make it?
I think it's going to be a little close. We'll see what happens. We are pulling a decent amount of weight. It's not the heaviest load we've ever pulled with the Cybertruck, but I think this trailer's right around 2,500 pounds, if I remember right. Side by side is right around 1,800 pounds, so good amount of weight hooked up to the back of us. We'll just have to keep you posted with how much energy we're using.
And I'm thinking the trailer is a little chunkier than you're thinking.
Yeah.
We're right around 5K, I think, all in.
Okay.
With this setup. And look, the thing about towing with electric vehicles is it's not really the weight that has a big impact on the range. It's actually the aerodynamics. And this is a fairly aerodynamic load, right? If you're towing a big flat box trailer, that's really going to have an impact, especially on the highway. And the towing we're doing is going to be a lot of kind of twisty mountain roads. So I'm curious to see now, we're currently seeing an 87% battery. Now I had this vehicle charged up at the ranch when I left this morning. We've already gone 27 miles. So we've gone 27 miles, only used 13%, but this is where things are going to get tough going up into the mountains. Then we'll unhitch and see how far we can go on that Polaris as well.
Let's do it.
So let's talk about how the Cybertruck tows. Now granted, what we're towing today is less than half of what this truck can tow in total, but it is super confident. So obviously you have that instant acceleration with the 600 horsepower, but the chassis dynamics are very good. The one thing which is a little off-putting to me is the steer-by-wire system, because it is so unbelievably sensitive, which is fun around town when you're not towing, but when you got a trailer, I wish I could kind of dial back the steering ratio a little bit. But more importantly, I wish I could turn off the rear steer with like a tow mode, because it's very easy to jackknife this truck with how tight this vehicle can steer. And then one of the cool things is the regen braking. So when you're going downhill, you just let off of the accelerator and the truck will slow itself down to a stop, and it can blend in trailer brakes as well when you're doing that. But it's a really smart system. I don't know, Alex, it's pretty comfortable, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's definitely comfortable. It's you know, this is a quiet truck, so you can hear the noises that the trailer is putting out, but you can't feel too many of them. I did notice, you know, especially in town, like you were saying with the steer-by-wire, especially around some of those roundabouts where you really had to be careful. Some more attention had to be put into that compared to like a normal gas or diesel truck that typically doesn't have rear steer.
Yeah.
So a couple things that you got to think about, but overall it's been pretty good.
And I've said it before, but I'll say it again, the mirrors suck for towing.
Yeah.
These little triangle things
Yeah.
are not it.
They're shaped like the vehicle, which is cool, but once you've got a trailer hooked up, there's not a whole lot you can see. There's small, it's a small piece of glass, and there's no like spotter mirror, you know, convex mirror on the outside of it. So mirrors could be better.
Cameras, however, are really good. So we got a nice set of cameras so we can easily see what's in front of us, as well as some of our blind spots, which is good. So that's pretty useful. And then even if you're not using the camera screen, you can also just have a default to the rear view camera, and you can easily see your load, make sure you're all hooked up. So that's pretty good. I'll give them credit on that. I would love to see blind spot monitoring integrated with a trailer length like Ram does. I think that's a really cool feature. We are using a ton of power, so we've transitioned to this dirt road, which has been really steep through the mountains, and this is not conducive to efficiency. So if I go into, let's go into, no, not charging trips, here we go. So we've got 50 miles driven, 50 kilowatt hours used. We're averaging 1 mile per kilowatt hour, or 1,000 watt hours per mile. Just going down here a little bit now. And we're down to 57% of the battery. Now look, this would be a pretty nerve-wracking situation because we are not at the trailhead yet. But on the way back to the ranch, a lot of it is going to be very downhill. Now, this is obviously, Alex, not diesel truck range, right? So long distance towing, I think we're once again proving not the strength of the Cybertruck. But I'm hoping we'll have enough at least for this limited use case of an afternoon of side-by-side adventures.
Yeah, we wouldn't take this setup we're using right now all the way out to like Moab or somewhere super far, but this could be super practical. If we can, you know, make it from the ranch up to the trailhead, do our off-roading, and come back down all on a single charge, I'd say that's a pretty successful trip. We have a charger back at the office, we have a charger at the ranch, so that's something we could actually do regularly and it would make sense.
Right, and I think for some folks, like if you're just towing your side-by-side, your bikes, your ATVs or whatever to an OHV park, similar situation, yeah, this is a similar use case. And a lot of folks are also not towing with this level of elevation gain, right? If you're in Ohio or Florida, you're not going to be gaining 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet in the matter of 20 miles like we are here.
Yeah.
All right, so we made it to our Caribou Trailhead, 53% in 169 miles remaining. Let's look at our trip computer here. So, traveled 52 miles, used 55 kilowatt hours for an average of 1,061 watt hours per mile. So definitely not the most efficient trip out there, but luckily on the way back down to Boulder, we shouldn't use hardly any power. So Alex, we're here with this Polaris. Walk us through some of the cool features on this unit.
Yeah, so this is the Ranger XP Kinetic Ultimate. So obviously the Ranger is one of the side-by-side lineups that Polaris has. Really good for working, but also going out and having fun in the mountains. And the Kinetic is the electric version of that. So this being the Ultimate has the bigger battery size. It's a 29.8 kilowatt hour battery pack. Makes about 110 horsepower and 140 foot-pounds of torque. About an 80-mile range according to Polaris, and that's if you're going 25 miles per hour. But other than that, it's a pretty standard Ranger. It's just the powertrain is a little bit different.
Now, one thing worth noting is that horsepower and specifically the torque number are very much competitive in this segment with the gasoline models.
Yep.
So it should be a pretty zippy little unit. Now, this is not the first Polaris EV on the market. They've actually had them for quite a number of years now, but previously, they've been largely kind of utility golf carts, a lot of lead acid batteries being used. This one's a full lithium ion pack. 29.8 kilowatt hours is more than the first gen Nissan Leaf had. So pretty juicy unit. And you've got a lot of the same stuff that you'd find on the gasoline unit. So we have a pretty nice set of wheel, tire, and suspension setup on this unit. 9-inch R14 wheels. These are 29s, by the way, in terms of diameter.
All right, so we are in the Ranger XP Kinetic, and we're gonna get on the trail right away. Pretty cool not having much noise coming out of this at all, because we're out here to have fun and explore nature, so not having a loud engine makes you feel like you're more in tune with the scenery, and also maybe we'll get to run up on some wildlife since we don't have a noisy side-by-side scaring them away.
Alex, one of the weird things about electric vehicles is because they're so quiet, you hear rattles more than you would in an internal combustion powered vehicle.
Yeah, you hear all the rocks moving around underneath you, and yeah, you just hear the suspension working. A little different.
Now, Alex, one thing I'm noticing is the riding experience feels very similar to a standard Ranger, minus the noise, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this feels just like a gas-powered Ranger, which is good. I mean, they're using that same Ranger branding, and it makes sense, because this does feel like a Ranger. It just doesn't sound like a traditional Ranger.
How's the power?
Let's see.
God!
That doesn't feel like a regular Ranger. Pretty good.
Wow, what a difference, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely gets a little squirrely pretty quick.
What's crazy is it's a lot like a car where they don't give you all the torque from zero, but once you hit like that 15, 20 mile an hour mark, you get that almost sensation of like being in a Tesla. It really pushes you back.
Yeah, it hauls, and exactly like you said, you get into the throttle and it might take a second, but before you know it, you're going faster than you want to. So power is really impressive, better than I thought it was going to be for sure.
What's a little alarming is that you got all that power and torque on demand all the time in a Ranger. Right, so this isn't the full width of some of the Razor products, especially like the upper end Razors. I mean, I'd love to see this powertrain, what it would be like in a wider platform that could handle this at higher speeds, right?
I agree. I think there's no reason this powertrain couldn't be in a Razor with, you know, the active suspension and much wider stance, because yeah, it could use it for sure. I mean, I get that this is built for work, and you know, you want it to be maneuverable and nimble, but this definitely feels like a sporty side-by-side, so I would like to see it in more of a sport setup.
Now let's, out of curiosity, this is standard mode, let's see what it's like in the eco mode.
It's a little dulled out, but still a lot quicker than some of the other machines we've tested.
Now what I'm noticing is in the eco mode, it really kind of softens the throttle response, but when you go full throttle, it still feels pretty much like full throttle.
Yeah, it's a little, you can be a little more aggressive with the throttle. You know, if you're on like a really rough, rocky trail where you're worried about stabbing the throttle, eco is probably going to work great, but if you really get into it, you're still going to pick up some speed pretty quick.
What about the sport mode?
Is that sport?
All right, here is sport. Holy shit! Dude!
Yeah, and then, you know, it just feels a little squirrely when you get on the brakes. These tires aren't quite wide enough, the suspension doesn't react quite quick enough, so, you know, a little bit of some performance parts would help this out.
This is definitely overpowered for the platform, I would say.
Definitely is.
It also feels a little heavier than the standard Ranger.
Yeah, I think by a couple 100 pounds. I saw like a little over 1,900 pounds on this, and typical two-door gas-powered Ranger is probably going to be somewhere around 1,700 pounds. So.
And you don't really feel that at all accelerating, but you can reach such vicious speeds so quickly.
Yeah.
You definitely feel it trying to slow down.
Yeah, with how quickly this goes, it's getting close to the point of needing an actual harness-style seatbelt instead of these automotive-style seatbelts.
And then a couple of other cool features back here, which are good for that work play. Alex, want to show them that dump bed?
Yeah, so dumping cargo bed.
How that works.
And you do have some auxiliary power back here as well, some tie downs. I actually want to show them the sticker before we get the bed folded down, because you can see the payload numbers here, which is maximum weight capacity of 1,500 pounds. There you go. Let's take a look at how the cargo bed dumps. Just a handle on the side, and you can do it from either side. So one person operation. That lets you kind of see where the battery is, the battery and the motor are under there.
Yeah.
But not much to look at otherwise.
Yeah, pretty centrally located as well, the battery, right? Not super high. And then what's interesting about this is it's a single motor setup. So a lot of all-wheel drive cars will have a dual motor setup, one in the front, one in the rear. This is a single motor setup with a conventional four-wheel drive system with open rear diff, locked rear diff, and then of course that front end engaged and locked up as well. And then we do have a hitch back here. You can see the max vertical weight, 250 pounds.
2,500 pound max weight though, that's pretty good.
Pretty juicy, yeah.
A lot of side-by-sides are rated at 2,000 pounds. So.
Yeah, so they've done a really good job in trying to keep the capability of this unit, even though it's gone to electrification. And then here's where you plug it in. This will work with your standard level 1 or level 2 home car chargers, just a J1772 plug with a 6 kilowatt rating. So in theory, you should be able to get fully charged with this vehicle in a few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm doing the math right.
But power's easy to modulate. I mean, I'm not really using the brakes at all. I'm just kind of adjusting what I'm doing with the throttle to work my way through some of this more challenging terrain or a little bit rockier stuff. So far, so good.
Now, what I'm noticing too is ground clearance is pretty significant, and I was worried about, you know, protecting the battery, because what you don't want to happen is puncture one of those lithium cells and create a runaway fire in the forest.
Yep.
Right? That's bad news. But the battery is tucked pretty high up in the platform, and there does appear to be a significant amount of skid plating on this unit. So I'm not too concerned about it initially.
Yeah, I'm not too worried either. It's still, I mean, even though it is getting close to 2,000 pounds, that's still decently light for an off-roader. So if you were to set it down on a rock, it's not like you have a ton of weight crashing down on it. So yeah, hopefully the skid plates would hold up decently well. But definitely something to think about that you don't really need to think about with, you know, your gas-powered side-by-side. And the other thing is too, you know, we park a side-by-side at the ranch all the time. We leave it outside all winter long. What's gonna happen to the battery in this, let's say, if you're like us and you don't have a dedicated indoor parking spot for your side-by-side? So, little bit of some new questions you need to ask yourself if you're looking at an electric side-by-side like this.
Right, and we're coming across a fair amount of at least puddles out here. So over the course of the day, I'm curious to see if that's going to pose any challenges with the electrical architecture, right? That's a comment that I see a lot with off-roading EVs. Gosh, dude.
That's just too fun, sorry.
That is wild. I'm amazed that the drivetrain can hold up with that burst of torque.
I know, it happens so quick.
Really curious to see what the half shaft longevity is going to be on this unit, because they just give you full torque so fast. It feels pretty good though. I do like the quiet sensation. You know, I think a lot of folks love the sound of gasoline engines, and I would agree with the big burly V8, but some of these like parallel twins in the side-by-side market, they're not exactly melodic sounding, right? They're not burly and they're not kind of beautiful to listen to. They just sound like lawn equipment.
Yeah.
So I don't really miss the noise out here.
No, I agree. A lot of them are just whiny and they get old. They give you a headache, especially if you're locked in them for any extended period of time. So I agree. I don't for a second feel like I was wishing I had engine noise, which in some cars on the road, I'm like, oh, this electric car is awesome, but I wish I had some better noise coming out of this to make it feel more of a performance machine, but this I don't. I'm loving how quiet this is. Let's take a look at the instrumentation, because that looks a little bit different from what you'd find on a gas-powered Ranger. So I'm going to get this net out of the way here. And when I flip the key on, you'll see a little bit different. So speedometer over here on this side, but then you have a power graph on this side. So as you accelerate, it'll work its way up into the power being used. That's the blue. And then as you're, you know, decelerating down a hill, it'll work its way into the regen and try and put some power back into the battery.
And then the way you actually drive this thing is a little different as well. So you have what looks to be a pretty conventional Polaris shifter here, except there's no reverse cog. Instead, you have a little power switch here to basically operate the powertrain in reverse.
Yeah, so still a park gear, still neutral, high and low, but instead of having a separate reverse gear, you would put it, you know, into high or low and then hit reverse.
And you've got a switch here for your auxiliary components, right? Drive modes, you got a couple different drive modes. So you got Eco, you've got a standard, and you also have a sport mode. Your ride command system, pretty standard to other Polaris products. And then, also worth noting, this is a 3-seater unit, 2 primary, 1 middle seat. So a lot of this will feel pretty conventional if you're used to the Polaris Ranger world. It's just some of the driving aspects are a little different, and especially the way it performs on the trail, which we'll show you now. So the Caribou off-road trail is rated at about a 5 out of 10 according to Onyx Off-Road. And Onyx Off-Road is our go-to off-road trail navigation software. Be sure to check them out for all your off-roading needs. It's great for trails like this because you can kind of learn what you're getting into. But the cool thing about the Caribou off-road area is there's a lot out here. So this is called the Rainbow Lake side, but you can also take it up into the mountains to more the Eldora side, but we wanted to try this end because of the water crossings and these puddles, and there's quite a few of them, and eventually they are going to start getting quite a bit deeper, so we're going to have to see what that means for the XP Kinetic.
Yeah, the one downside with this machine, at least how we have it spec'd here, is we're pretty open to the elements right now. We don't have a roof, we don't have a windshield, we have soft doors, so we can't take these too fast or we're gonna get real dirty. Maybe I've gotten too used to these expensive fully enclosed side-by-sides, but...
Well, and talking about expensive, Alex, so you came to me earlier today, what do you think it costs? And my guess, being still a Ranger, not a Razor, not you know, a four-door model, I was guessing somewhere around $19,000.
And you are way off.
Boy, was I sorely mistaken.
Yeah, so starting price on these is right at $30,000, $29,999. But that's not for this Ultimate. So if you get the $30,000 Kinetic, you get a much smaller battery pack. It's right around 14 kilowatt hours, where this is almost 30 kilowatt hours. So you're cutting your battery basically in half. This machine is the Ultimate, so you get, you know, the premium paint, you get the nicer battery, but not much else besides that. We have the ride command, but it's not like we have a full cab enclosure. And this is still an expensive machine, over 37 grand, 37,499, and that's before you add everything you might want, like winches and a windshield wiper and you know, like hard side doors and all that kind of stuff.
Now that's big money.
Huge money.
You are well past turbo money in the high 30s there.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you're on the border of being able to get two Rangers, gasoline Rangers, right, for the price of this Kinetic Ultimate.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just the start of it. Like, we are lucky that we've been working with electric vehicles for a while, but I would imagine a lot of people looking at this, it might be their first EV or first electric side-by-side. So then you gotta figure out how to install a charger, and there's added costs with that. So it's definitely not an inexpensive setup.
Now, you could argue, well, given our electricity rates here in Colorado, this would probably be somewhere around $4, $5, $6 to fill versus the gasoline version, which was going to be $20, $25, $30 depending on gas prices. But you'd have to ride your Ranger thousands and thousands and thousands of miles for that to even have a marginal impact on the value proposition.
Yeah, and good luck doing that for thousands and thousands of miles with the limited range on this.
One thing I will say is no service to speak of, right, in terms of oil changes or CVT belts.
Exactly.
That is fantastic.
Yep.
I do really appreciate that, and I think that almost makes this vehicle feel a little bit more premium in the driving experience because you don't have any belt slip, right? There's no kind of winding up of the engine.
We've been in two-wheel drive pretty much the whole time too, with the rear diff locked, so I just threw it into four-wheel drive, see what happens. Definitely getting a little deeper. Not too bad though, and we took that pretty slowly. Also, I am noticing it's pretty easy to modulate the throttle when you're going really slow. Like, this is all real easy here to do that. I can crawl at a really slow speed, but if I let it completely come to a stop and then I want to start again, there is a little bit of a lurch there that you kind of got to get used to. But once you're rolling, it's pretty good. Let's go through this last little section here. Super capable. Not worried even a little bit about that. Not a ton of information on the screen, but you can see there is a little battery and range estimation. So we're at 97% battery, and it's estimating 81 miles of range remaining, which is better than the 80 miles Polaris says that you get on a full charge. So range so far seems pretty good. You never know how deep these are until you actually get in here. That one's pretty deep. And still a really good turning circle with this short wheelbase Ranger.
It's so odd about to tackle what is a fairly significant obstacle that would get a lot of SUVs and trucks hung up and not hearing any sound.
It's a little strange.
All right, here goes Alex. Let's see how it does in the hole. So it'll be a good test of ground clearance as well.
So this drops off pretty aggressively here. We'll see if we run out of breakover, start running into the bottom. I don't think so though.
Nice, dude. Let's see if you got the departure angle. Oh, yeah. Now, if I recall, it can get pretty tippy in these holes. This one is always a little more interesting. How is it modulating slowly, Alex? Is it a challenge at all?
It's pretty good. It's actually easier, I think, than in a gas-powered machine. It's just whenever you actually come to a full stop, then it gets a little more challenging.
This looks like nothing on camera, but he's at like a 25-degree vertical.
It feels like something, Tommy.
I might go cut it a little bit driver, Alex. Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, we got lots of water. Powering through that a little quick so I can keep my feet dry, but it made it through. Hopefully this one's not quite as deep. Oh, it's deep. I thought we were about to lose it there.
All right, well, this basically marks the end of this spur of the trail. It does go maybe half a mile up, but it's kind of just rocky, nothing too interesting. So we're gonna turn around here and try the mud pits on the way back as well.
All right, we're gonna go back through the mud the other way. I know from coming this direction that I gotta creep into it to avoid a big splash, but I'm gonna start sinking pretty quick and then I'm gonna have to throttle out of it. So we kind of know what to expect this time. I'm gonna stay a little towards the edge here. And it wasn't quite as deep on that side. Not bad. This part, I think, is going to be a little more challenging going up, though. So, still in four-wheel drive, we're still in low gear.
Oh yeah, look at it crawl. One of the cool things about this unit is it does have a true four-wheel drive low, which is kind of unusual for an electric vehicle. Let's see if it can crawl up this. Took out a door on a Jeep there once, doing exactly what Alex just did. Now this is where a lot of vehicles get in trouble because of the breakover angle. Oh, but the two-door Ranger, come on.
It's so short, not a problem. Look at that. These things are so capable. It's so hard to find something that actually gets this stuck. And I know that doesn't look super gnarly on camera, but trust me, here in person, that's a pretty steep and deep obstacle.
So Alex, the Ranger XP Kinetic, what do you think? Overall thoughts?
I think it's really good. I am actually pretty impressed by how this performed out on the trail. It tackled everything. I mean, it didn't get held up once. I was confident it could make it through any obstacle we came across. It's really fun, like super, super fun. The only downside is the range. It's not quite as good as we were hoping.
Yeah, so let's see how far we went here. So, full charge. So we drove just 9 miles. 9 miles exactly, actually. We started at 42.2 on the Odo and we're at 51.2. Let's see what our state of charge is. 82%. So we used 18% to go 9 miles. So that is not a ton of range in the real world.
Yeah, and we were on a difficult trail, but we weren't like full throttle for extended periods of time, just a couple jolts here and there. We were rock crawling pretty much, and I would like to see a little more range. That was starting to drop pretty quickly, but other than the range anxiety, I think it's probably one of the best Polaris side-by-sides we've tested.
So fun. That instant torque is like addicting. I think it's too much torque for this platform. This and a Razor would be a much better combination from the power standpoint, but having no sound on the trail was really cool. Being able to kind of like sneak up on people was kind of fun. So yeah, I mean, it's a really, really good machine. It's just doesn't quite go far enough, and it's just too expensive for what you get.
I mean, like you said, this is kind of, they did have some electric stuff prior, but this is the first like real lithium ion full electric side-by-side from Polaris. So hopefully, just like with the cars, it only gets better from here. There'll be more options, more configurations. This is just kind of the first run of it.
I mean, look, 37 grand, you're like in base model Tesla territory, right? With airbags and 300 miles of range, and it's 50 state legal, but it's very impressive. I think that you'd have a ton of fun with this out on the trail or out on the farm. There's no service. You know, if you did use this like in a utility setting on a fixed location, right, you can plug it in. You don't have to bring in jerry cans to get this thing fueled up. So there's a lot of potential here. They just need to bring down the cost and up the range a little, I think. Well, let's do this, Alex. We're gonna get this loaded up on the Tesla and then see if we can make it back to our home base.
Sweet.
One thing, we've been using a bunch of these WaySafe hitches. I was a little unsure of them when they came on as a sponsor, to be completely honest with you, but they have really proven their value, and the quality is really what gets me. Very modular in design, easy to raise and lower, easy to swap out balls, and they tell you your estimated tongue weight. You know, I thought, you know, is this going to be useful in the real world? Turns out when you have, you know, loads and you're trying to measure tongue weight and you've got, you know, EVs that you want to make sure you're within limits, it actually works super, super well. So we've driven 20 miles down the mountain so far. It's taken us 43 minutes and we're averaging negative 343 watt hours per mile. So we've actually gained electricity. We started with 53% at the top of the mountain, and in the 43-minute drive, we are now down up to 58%. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of the key things about driving all the way up in the mountains like that, is you use a lot of energy getting up there, but we're not using anything on the way back down.
Yeah, I actually gained 5%, which is the most I've ever seen this truck gain. Part of that's because this trailer is helping us push us down the hill, which allows us to regen more. Whew, well, bit of a long day, got stuck in some traffic on my way up to the ranch, but we did end up making it on the same charge we left at this morning. Haven't had to put any energy back into the Tesla with the plug, so let's see how we did. So trip A is what I reset this morning at 100% state of charge. So we drove 109 miles, 73 kilowatt hours used, 673 watt hours per mile, and the final tally is we made it back up to the ranch with 113 miles remaining at 36% state of charge. So listen, is the Tesla Cybertruck a great long-distance towing vehicle? No, it is not. But if you are just towing your side-by-side 100, 150 miles, even through some mountains, what goes up must come down. And we drove over 20 miles and gained energy on the way down the mountain. So it was a good experience. Truck tows really well, and I think we're both pretty impressed with that Polaris, minus the price. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.